All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Rlcs recap for North America for week 3 and then go into our week 4 matches. And I don't know why you guys watch this anymore because my predictions are trash. I think this weekend overall went 4-8, I think. I think that's what it was, around there. Wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty at all. But, you know, when we get something wrong, it's like the same thing with G2 fans. When G2 loses, they blame me. So when I get something wrong, I'm going to blame the teams. Simple as that. The teams didn't perform like I expected them to. I'm just going to blame the teams. It wasn't me. It was them. And let's continue. Let's talk about last week. The demise of Cloud9, the end of the Big Three, the death of the Big Three at 1:11 Pacific time, as James called it. 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, 3 if the Big Three are dead. Simple as that. Cloud9. It's not pretty. It's not pretty right now. It's not even like, oh, like these teams are showing up like hardcore against them. Like, they're showing up, obviously. Cloud9's playing like shit. Pretty simple. Like, Torment's making bad saves. Like, Gimmick can't do anything on the offensive side. Squishy's been incredibly quiet as well, except for that Ghost series, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty right now. Cloud9, they lose 2 games here. They're 1-3. They can still make playoffs. Like, if they beat Rogue, they're probably in playoffs anyway later on, but we'll see. And they still have a chance at Worlds, but they got to fix it quick. It's not been good. And like, the worst part about this week for Cloud9 was like, this is your week to just give you that buffer. That was the whole point of this week. Like, I went into this week like, all right, you split with Ghost and Pittsburgh Knights. So now it's all about just keep up that game differential, right? Go like 6-1 on this week. Not too hard, probably, versus Birds and Space Station. Well, that didn't happen. And they got 2 losses. And now their last 3 games are Energy, G2, and Rogue, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Rogue. So probably can still make playoffs, but that also depends on what else is happening. Right now, Rogue is probably dead last. Pretty simple there. They're 1-3 at a -6 game differential. So obviously they need wins, but for game differential tiebreakers, at least, it's going to be very difficult for them. So Cloud9 should pass them, but then it's like, do you pass Space Station? Does Space Station get another win? Do Birds get more wins? Who knows? Who knows? But their game differential is good, at least, for Cloud9 at -1. So, like, geez. So, yeah. So, we'll see. But Birds take that series. Very good win for the Birds, because the Birds were looking at trying to go 1-1 this week. They beat Space Station, and we all thought it'd be 1-1 the other way, right? We all thought they would take down Rogue, and they would lose to Cloud9, and then they would be safe for a top 6 spot. Now, it kind of muddies the waters that they take down Cloud9, but they lose to Rogue because it keeps Rogue in it. But Birds look pretty strong in their first game. The second game, not as much. It did feel more of like a bottom of the league game where Rogue actually did pop off a little bit and had some plays, and Gyro was an absolute monster. That ceiling pass right there was beautiful from Gyro. I think I had that as the number 2 play of the day behind Kronovi's shot. But Gyro is nuts. And I'm not sold on Rogue still. We'll talk about this Pittsburgh Knights and G2 game in a second. I should probably talk about it while it's on, but whatever. Rogue, like, it was a nice win, but I still wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they lost out for the rest of their games. But we'll see. We'll see. It's at least a positive step. This play right here by Rizzo. What? Like, why are you flying to this ball? And these are the things with G2. I was hoping it would show the replay, but it didn't. But these are the things with G2. It's like Rizzo had a miserable performance versus the Knights. He missed a lot of shots. He had some bad defensive plays. Like, that play I wouldn't fault him for. It was just a nice flick. JNEPS and Chicago are just not getting their offense going whatsoever versus the Knights and Energy. Gyro right here with the pre-flip gang. Shot. Moi guys. Gyro here. Bam. There it is. One thing I want to point out is this video is from Kdence. Go check him out on YouTube. I will put the link in the description below. He puts up the all goals videos like 2 hours like after the broadcast, if that. And it's fantastic. So thank you to Kdence for allowing me to use these to just have some background stuff going on for you guys. Next up. So G2 looks bad. Pittsburgh Knights look good. Not too much there, honestly, because G2 looked really bad. But moving on, we'll talk about Energy Ghost. I think this was a pretty clean win for Energy, and I think it just shows that their defense is top-notch. And I thought that would always be a problem for Ghost. Like, I thought if Ghost played G2 this week, I would have picked Ghost, which they play next week, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I did feel like Energy kind of just outclasses Ghost pretty hard here, just because Ghost doesn't have enough offense to take down Energy versus that really strong defense. So I didn't feel like Ghost would win that, but I do think Ghost is a very strong team in top 2 contention with the Pittsburgh Knights right now, at least. But they didn't get the win there. Pretty clean from Energy, all in all. Moving on, Space Station takes on Cloud9. We talked about that a little bit with Cloud9, but Space Station, huge win for them as well. Like, everyone's trying to not be in that bottom 2, and people are clawing their ways out. Space Station, Birds, and Rogue all get wins this week to help that. So we'll see what happens there. Cloud9 could be like in that bottom 2. Then we got G2 versus Rogue. And G2 completely outclassed them in 2 of the games. The overtime game was a little unfortunate because I think AJ had some disconnect issues. So maybe Rogue could win that game. But I think all in all, Rogue's the better team. It showed in 2 games where they completely outclassed them and padded their stats a bit there. And G2 gets the win. So now moving on to the predictions for this week. Let's talk about that. I need to get yeah, here we go. All right, so first game, Ghost versus Space Station. I think this is really good for Ghost to get this game in before they play G2. It probably will be pretty useful. I think Space Station, I'm not like sold on them having enough offense to get by the Ghost defense. The one thing I want to see from Ghost is them begin to score a little bit more or like blow out the teams that are below them just a little bit more. That's one thing that G2 does extremely well. And we're going to talk about it this weekend. I have a segment about Ghost versus G2 and their stats. But G2, like, they pad their stats when they play teams that are worse than them. So we'll talk about that this weekend a little bit more on the pre-show. But for now, we'll do Ghost. I'm going to go 3-1. I'll give Space Station 1 because their demos can be a little bit of a nuisance. And Ghost, their offense is sometimes not, like, perfect. So they sometimes will give up a game just because they can't score enough. Next up, Energy and Pittsburgh Knights, the battle for first place. Rlcs has said it himself, man. He said it himself. He fears Energy. He's a cocky son of a gun, but he won't say that he's better than Energy. So you know what? Rlcs, you've been right so far. I'm going to go with you again. I think Energy will win that, and they'll be on their way towards a 7-0 season. They'll probably clinch number 1 seed this week when they play Cloud9 at the end, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Ghost versus G2. So, if you've been watching Rocket League for the past 3 weeks, Ghost is clearly the better team than G2 right now. That means they'll probably lose, because that's just how it's been. But I'm going to give this one a 3-1 for Ghost. Ghost has been the better team. If you look at stats, though, it's going to look like G2's pretty good. All their stats are just padded with Birds and Rogue. They have miserable stats against actual good teams. We'll see, though. Like, obviously, G2, you would think they would show up at some point, but Ghost is playing extremely smart. Like, I think the best part about them is they rotate out so efficiently. They never try and stay for too long. The problem with that, obviously, is they don't go for those risky goals that could, push a game out of reach for some teams. So that's the only thing that you worry about is, like, if they don't score enough and G2's offense wakes up, then G2 will win. But G2 has to win this series. Like, Ghost is not going to give them a freebie here. G2 is going to have to provide that offense that they've shown against worse teams. And if they don't show that at all, I think Ghost will easily win the series. So this comes down to, will G2's offense wake up or not? So I think Ghost, you kind of know what you're going to get from them. And it seems relatively consistent where it's going to be somewhat of a defensive battle, but they will, they'll outscore the other team by just a small margin, but they'll do it every single time. And Justin, you're insane. I hate you, Justin. How do you even do that? Moving on. Pittsburgh Knights, Birds. I think, Knights are going to win this. I don't think Birds are all that special. in the grand scheme of things. And I think Pittsburgh Knights, they get a pretty good win. Let's hope they don't tilt after losing to Energy. That's the only thing you don't want to see. But they didn't tilt last time when they lost to Ghost, and then they played Rogue in week 1. So they should be fun. Space Station versus Rogue, the battle for the bottom 2, basically. Whoever loses this, very likely in the bottom 2. So very, very important game here. I'm going to go Space Station. Like, I think Rogue made some plays. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go Rogue. I think it's relatively close, but I do think Rogue made just enough plays for me to be a believer over Space Station. I still am not sold on Space Station. They beat a Cloud9 team, but Cloud9 was miserable for the first 2 games. And then, like, it kind of just came down to Cloud9 was the better team in the last 3 games. It's just a matter of everyone's at least good enough to win some of their games, to win 1 game out of 3, right? So Cloud9 kind of fell short because of that. But I'm going to go Rogue there in a 3-2. Next up, we got Cloud9 and Energy. I don't think this will be that close, but I really do want to see Cloud9 put up a fight. So, you know what? I'm going to make this one go 5. Because then it'll be really interesting going into the final week where Cloud9's like, oh shit, it's Cloud9 again. Now can they do it in week 5 and make playoffs? And I think that could be really fun. And we'll see if that happens. But all in all, at the end of this, this would mean Energy is 6-0. They would have clinched the number 1 seed for NA, and they would be going to the World Championships. Pittsburgh Knights would be 4-2. Ghost would be 4-2, so they would be tied right there on that spot. Very likely, Pittsburgh Knights will still have a game differential advantage there, but we'll see. See what happens there. G2 will fall to 2-3, right? They only played 1 game this week. Yeah, 2-3. Birds would fall to 2-4. Space Station, they have 2 games this week, right? We have 2 losses from them, yeah. So they would fall to 1-4. Cloud9 would be 1-4, and Rogue would also be. Rogue would be 2-3. So that's where I have it right now. So we'll see what happens going on for NA. But NA was wild last week. It's probably gonna be wild again. And very interesting, man, how Cloud9, those 2 losses, like this game 5 hurts the most because it's like, all right, we suck today, but all they have to do is just win this game 5, right? And if they win this game 5, they're like, we're still in playoffs. We just got to make sure we show up in playoffs, right? But now it's like, we might not even make playoffs. So that could be incredibly rough for them. So we'll see what happens there. My predictions went way out the window last week. We'll go over those quickly, I guess, while we have time, while we're watching the last of these highlights. I had Cloud9 over Birds pretty easily. I had G2 over Knights because I was thinking G2. It was a one-time thing versus Energy, but it wasn't. I had Birds over Rogue as well, which is hilarious because, like, you would think, like, throughout the day, if you were predicting, all right, you probably still have G2 over Knights. So, like, Birds over C9, that's an upset. Knights over G2, that's an upset. Because Birds beat C9, Birds losing to Rogue, that's an upset. And it could have went either way. Like, I still think it's probably an upset. Then Energy over Ghost, all right, we finally got one that's not an upset. Space Station beating Cloud9, that's an upset. Even though they lost to Birds, I would still say that would be an upset. And then finally G2 over Rogue, not an upset either. So 2 games that were not upsets in NA. It was wild. It was wild. But those were my predictions. Like, I usually don't go too much for the upset picks, all that much. So I think I went 2-4, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was not pretty. Not pretty at all. In terms of upsets, like, the gameplay actually wasn't that bad for NA outside of, like, Cloud9, I would say. For the most part, like, the gameplay wasn't terrible, and it was really exciting to watch, and I'm glad that we finally have the big 3, like, being dead, where once again, for the last 4 seasons, season 4 through season 7, the big 3 has never finished worse than 13-2 versus the bottom 5, and they lost 3 times today. Right now I think they're like 5-4 or something like that. I can't remember the exact thing, but it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But it's really exciting. Knights and Ghosts seem like they're emerging at the right time. I would be pretty surprised if they don't make Worlds, both of those teams. I'm hoping, like, because this is the first time we've seen Ghost where I think they're actually pretty decent compared to just, like, your mediocre 5th, 6th team. So I really hope they don't bomb out, like, in the playoffs. But we'll see when they play G2 this week. That game is probably more important, where you're trying to see who has a chance to still fight for top 2. Like, Energy Pittsburgh Knights is pretty important, obviously. Like, if Knights win that, we have our top 2. It'll be Knights and Energy, very, very likely. But if Energy wins it, it opens up that door again for G2 and Ghost for a top 2 spot. So we'll see what happens there. But those games are very, very important. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's funny because you would think match of the week, right? Like going into the season, Energy versus Cloud9, a battle of the big 3. And it's like, that's like the 3rd best game, maybe 4th best. Because if you want to put like Space Station Rogue up for importance. So it's like it's just kind of funny how that all works out. But hey, it happens. We're just trying to waste some time here so you guys can watch all the rest of the goals here at the end of this thing. Let's see what people are saying in Twitch chat here. The Energy smashing everyone and then they lose when it matters most. We'll see. At the World Championships, I want to see what Energy does. Like, they're obviously going to be there, and we just want to see what damage they can bring. Like, obviously, everyone's going to say, like, they're due. And if it's, like, completely wild where we get, like, say, none of the big 3 from NA make it, like, outside of Energy, and then, like, in Europe, say Vitality doesn't make it, and, I don't know, Reciprocity. It's, like, all signs point to Energy. All right, if you don't win this one, you've done fucked up. Because it's like all these teams that are either new to the World Championship or like aren't expecting to do that well, and they surprise during league play. But when it comes down to the World Championship, you would rather see a Veloce there than a Vitality. No matter how they do in league play, you would rather play Veloce at the World Championship than Vitality. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But like Energy, like obviously that they're still needing that win. I think it's still a big deal to win in front of the crowd. Mostly just for story points, because I need something to talk about. So there you go. But we'll see what happens. They're looking very, very strong. And then honestly, like, don't put it past Ghost, man. A lot of people are sleeping on Ghost right now. It's almost Halloween time. They're just getting more powerful. That's how it works. Now after Halloween, they'll probably suck, but before Halloween, watch out. Watch out. All right, there we go. We wasted enough team. Can't even talk anymore. We wasted enough time. And there it is. NA is done. NA is good again. Maybe. I'm not sure. That's it for the NA recap. Thank you guys for watching. And for you guys in Twitch chat, we'll be right back with the Europe version. Europe will be up tomorrow for the YouTubes. So say bye to YouTubes.